So today on BRStv we're going to start a new series of videos on how to start up a new tank. In each episode we'll advance the tank a little bit more. I brought in one of our better customer service agents here, Reed, and he's going to help us out.
Thanks for having me today, Ryan. Most people out there think it's rather tough having a saltwater aquarium. The thing is, it's a lot easier than most people think. So all you need to set up a simple saltwater aquarium is the tank itself, some rocks, a couple pumps, a heater, and a light.
So in this episode, we really are going to keep it simple. I want to make this system as simple as you can possibly make it, and in each episode after this, we'll make it continually more advanced. So let's go see all the things that we purchased for this aquarium.
I selected a 40-gallon aquarium for this project because it's a great starter tank. Ample amount of space for aquascaping, water changes are easy, and you're not going to grow out of it as quick as a lot of smaller aquariums.
So based on Reed's suggestion, I picked up a 40-gallon breeder tank, a stand, a T5 fluorescent light, a heater, a fan to cool the light, a couple of power head pumps, and a bucket of salt.
We also picked up this black background here to put on the back of the aquarium to hide any cords or anything else behind the aquarium.
Whatever you do, please try to resist the temptation to use the pattern side of the background. Because what we're trying to do here is make a beautiful aquarium and not a picture of a beautiful aquarium. So we chose to put the tank here because it looked nice in the office, was close to a couple of outlets, and didn't get any direct sunlight here, which could cause nuisance algae problems. Because this tank really isn't all that big and we're on the ground floor, I don't have a lot of concerns about how heavy it is. However, if we were on the second floor and it was a larger tank, I'd have to make sure my floor can actually hold the weight of the tank because these things can get pretty heavy.
While aquascaping this aquarium, we decided to go with two nice large pieces of rock. It will allow us to take it in and out as this tank progresses. We also debated whether or not to use sand. I'll let Brian explain to you why we decided to go against it.
So I can really go either way on sand, and in most cases I will put about 1 inch of sand on the bottom because it looks nice. However, sand does become a trap for tank debris. In a nice bare bottom tank like this one, all that debris will be suspended where it's easier to remove. In this case, we're not going to put sand in the tank because we're going to progress the tank quite a few times, and doing that with sand in there will make quite a mess.
So next we're going to add our heater and our pumps to the aquarium. Most heaters come with suction cups such as these to attach to anywhere on the glass of the aquarium.
These power heads also come with a suction cup attachment. However, they have a nice magnet inside which securely holds them. Typically we're going to put one on each side of the aquarium to create a opposing flow, and that's going to have adequate water movement for all the tank inhabitants. So the tank is basically put together now, so it's probably time to put some water in it. Reed, do you remember what you did for water in your first tank?
My first aquarium, I purchased all my water at the local fish store. In a pinch, I will admit that every once in a while I would use some dechlorinator with some tap water to top it off. However, it didn't take long at all for me to realize RO system was the only way to do a reef tank.
Well, I imagine that's about how it goes for most reefers. Personally, my first tank was a 90, and I decided I didn't want to haul that water back and forth from the fish store, so I bought an RO system day one. Got it installed in my furnace room. Let's go take a look. So we have our reverse osmosis deionization system here. This is going to produce all of our water for the aquarium. We have two bins. The first one is the saltwater bin. We'll mix up all of our salt water here. And the second one is fresh water. The fresh water we'll use for replacing all of the evaporated water in the tank.
You might want to explain to everybody as to why you use fresh water to top off.
I agree. A lot of new people in the hobby will make the mistake of topping off the evaporated water with salt water. However, what happens is all of the water that's evaporating from the tank leaves, but the salt stays in. So if we use salt water, the salinity is just going to get higher and higher. So we always want to replace evaporated water with fresh water. So there's three basic things you need to know about mixing up a fresh batch of salt water. The first is you need to heat the water to the same temperature as the tank that it's going into. That's typically about 78 degrees. You also need to mix the water so that the salt can mix into the water, as well as keep it aerated. We'll do that with the same type of power head that you'd put in the tank. It has a nice magnetic suction cup that can go on the outside of the bin and attach it securely. And then of course you'll need some salt. Reed, maybe you could tell us about how you know when the salinity is right of the water before you use it.
When you're mixing salt water, we're looking to get a specific gravity of 1.026. There's a couple easy ways to measure this. Most people, when they first start, they'll get a simple hydrometer with a swing arm. However, most reefers tend to graduate fairly quick to refractometer. They're extremely easy to use. You just place your salt water on the lens, close it, and get your reading right up at the light.
I have to agree with you, Reed. Almost everybody I know that's in this hobby for any real period of time uses a refractometer. Let's go ahead and get some water into that tank.
Okay, we got our water added to our aquarium here. Everything's powered up. Can you explain to us why we decided to go with T5 lighting?
You know, I love T5 lighting. I've used it in a ton of different applications, all of which were a success. Not only housing and maintaining basically every type of coral, but also seeing explosive growth. I also like that it doesn't generate a tremendous amount of heat, which means that you can use passive cooling systems like something as simple as a fan. Often you don't even need a fan, depending on the room temperature. They're also very affordable.
To control the light, we decided to go with just a couple inexpensive timers. Typically we like to keep the blue actinic lights on for right around 8 hours and the daylight bulbs running about 6 hours a day.
So the next step in the process is to cycle the tank, which is where we build up a population of beneficial bacteria which will process all of the leftover food and fish poo. There are a lot of ways to do this. Personally, my favorite is to add a single hardy fish to the tank, some limited feedings, and then using a bacteria product like BRStv, which will help speed the process up and protect the fish.
So how long do you usually let the tank cycle for before you add more fish?
I usually let it cycle for about a month or so before I add any more fish. And even then I tend to add them a little slowly because I like to make sure that the tank is fully cycled and make sure there's no harm to the fish inside. During that time I also like to keep the lights off to inhibit any algae growth. A lot of new tanks tend to go through an algae spurt in the beginning. If you're not feeding the algae with any light, you can make sure you don't run into that problem. So Reed, what's your typical maintenance habits for a tank like this?
You know, a basic tank like this is usually not too much to do. One of the main things I would suggest to everyone out there, pick up a magnet cleaner. It's a really good tool to have. Only a couple times a week, go across all the glass. That's really going to help to get that algae at a lighter stage opposed to when it's really built up on there. You also want to check the tank a few times a week to make sure that the evaporation level is under control and you're topping it off with fresh water. So I'm also going to do 20% water changes. Normally you could get by every 2 weeks, but being that there's not a protein skimmer on this aquarium, we're going to do them every week.
So that's all there really is to setting up the simplest version of a saltwater aquarium. In the next episode of this series, we're going to step it up a little bit in the progression that we think that most reefers would take. We're going to add a hang-on protein skimmer to the back of it, a hang-on refugium, a carbon reactor, and some additional livestock.